Hey everybody, welcome back. Or maybe this is your first time watching. We recently put out a poll to find out who the scariest fighter is pound for pound. And a lot of people had comments, so I'm just going to introduce what we meant, or talk about what we meant by scariest fighter. So what we mean by scariest fighter is not the most dominant fighter, because if you're asking me who the most dominant fighter is, then we have to talk about Khabib, who's lost in one round, right?
Yeah.
John Jones, who's never lost a fight,
Yeah.
right? Well, one fight, but so this is not the most dominant fighter. It's not the best fighter. We're talking about the scariest fighter.
Who you wouldn't want to get into the cage with? Who has the most devastating highlight reel? When you watch him, it literally looks like a boogeyman. You know, someone you wouldn't want to get locked in a room with.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, obviously we think about knockouts and we think about brutal knockouts, right? And we started this off, we were actually going to pick one person from each weight division, but then we had to keep it to four for our poll. So the four contenders were Ngannou, Masvidal, Paulo Costa, and Justin Gaethje. So those are each in separate weight classes, from heavyweight down to lightweight. And obviously, no surprise, well, in my opinion, Francis Ngannou was picked most. He was 40% of our viewers said that he was the scariest fighter pound for pound. Masvidal was second at 30%, and then we had Justin Gaethje and Paulo Costa.
So if you really think about Francis Ngannou, I believe he only has one win in the UFC by decision. Other than that, I believe all his other wins are by knockout, and usually in the first round or two. A lot of his fights are in the first couple minutes. So when you look at a highlight reel like that, I think of Alistair Overeem, the uppercut he did to Alistair Overeem. I think about Curtis Blades, and he's doing this to the top level guys. You know, it's not like he's just they're feeding him bums, right? He did it to Cain Velasquez in only a minute or something less. I think less than a minute.
That was less than a minute.
And then on the other hand, you got George Masvidal. You know, he's just killing it too.
This year, he's well deserving to be on this list. That flying head, the flying knee, to Askren's head was probably one of the most ridiculous, and just seeing Askren on the ground like that was pretty
lifeless,
scary, right?
Especially Askren came into the UFC as a big question mark. Really, they weren't sure of his talents. He was undefeated. Then he had that really controversial fight with Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, which we'll get into in a later podcast.
Yeah, for sure. And then from there, it was. Oh, there's even more questions around Ben Askren. If anything, that fight helped propel his image, because people were just wanting to see him fight even more. Like, what can this guy really do? And then he fought George Masvidal, and we seen 6 seconds of him just getting flattened.
Yeah, and that Nate Diaz fight too. Those combos he was throwing on Nate Diaz were very impressive.
Not many people can drop Nate Diaz. There's only been a few that I can think of. Josh Thompson. And Conor McGregor are about the only two I can think of that have dropped Nate Diaz in the UFC. And then Masvidal came out there and dropped him with a nice quick combo and a head kick right away. And it almost looked like George Masvidal was just playing with him for that fight. Like, he was hitting him whenever he wanted. So
he was having fun out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary when you see somebody that calm and then they throw such killer combos. I think he would have put him away in that fight, to be honest, because I don't know how much Nate Diaz's eyebrow would have been attached to his head for longer.
Yeah.
But, that was a scary fight. So this is one that was surprising to me, and I think honestly maybe competes for the scariest fighter, is Paulo Costa.
Yeah, when you look at that guy, he looks like a statue. This guy looks like he's made from granite, you know?
This is a guy who hunts people down, doesn't get tired, and just throws every punch with power. I mean, the Yoel Romero fight, Yoel Romero is another brick wall.
That's another guy who could have easily been added to this
Absolutely.
list that people don't want to fight. Everyone, even when you talk about Adesanya's next opponent, everyone's like, oh, he won't fight Yoel. But it's because people have that image of Yoel where he's just a monster, and Costa went out there. It was a close fight, but he did beat him, you know? The thing is with Costa is just like the way he looks, man. That's the biggest thing. When I first heard of Costa, it was comparing his image, looking at his image, and it was just like, it was something about how jacked or how big he looked. And when you look at a guy like that and he's out there knocking people out, it's kind of hard to go against him.
Yeah, that fight before, who did he fight before Romero? That fight was that's the fight where I was like, this guy is scary.
Yeah,
Like,
I believe he fought. There was one knockout he had against Uriah Hall. I know for sure. That was a big one. I can't remember exactly. I'm not too much of a fan of Costa, so I don't know exactly his record. But just it's the image you think. When I think of Paulo Costa, I think of an animal. I think of a guy that people don't want to fight.
100%.
That's what I think. And then Justin Gaethje,
another one.
Yeah, you look at it's not even with his losses. Even with his losses, that those make the list. That's what gets him on the list. His wars with Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, Michael Johnson. He didn't stop coming. He eventually got knocked out in 2 of those fights, but it was one of those fights where it's like, man, this guy's taking shots and he just keeps coming and coming and coming.
Yeah, no, I mean, every fight, and I think he's a little less wild now. I think he's a little bit more calculated, but I mean, every fight he's literally hunting people down. It's like tunnel vision, straight at the guy, and he has devastating power. So that's a lightweight fighter I would not want to fight.
If we look at his last 3 fights, it's 3 knockouts in a row, 3 out cold knockouts. And you don't see people knock out Edson Barboza the way he knocked him out. One clean overhand right, and he was done. You see him knock out James Vick. One clean over right hand right, he was done.
That was nasty.
And those are all guys. I'm not sure if Barboza was on a streak at the time, but James Vick was one of the most supposed underrated lightweights at the time. And Justin Gaethje went out there and proved that he's not at the level that he thought he was. And then you look at his fight with Cerrone, the guy who's headlining the event. Headlining against McGregor, now he went out there and polished him off in less than a round.
Yeah. I mean, Justin Gaethje's on a streak right now, and he'll definitely be getting a top, either a contender or a title fight, I think, in the next year.
Really soon. Like there's he's in for a money fight or a big title opportunity or something very soon.
You know what's funny? Every person on this list is not a champion, but they could be in 2020.
Oh, easily. They're all on streaks. So we got Costa. I don't believe he's even lost in the UFC yet.
No.
We got Gaethje, 3-fight win streak. We got Ngannou. I believe he's on a 3 or 4 fight win streak. And we got Masvidal, 3-fight win streak. So, and actually, what we forgot to mention about Masvidal is his knockout of Darren Till. Darren Till. That's another reason why he was such a devastating fighter, and that's why he made number 2 on all the lists.
Close that distance with that hook.
Yeah, and that was him. That was a Darren Till who looked massive in comparison to Masvidal, and then coming off a title, that was him coming off his title fight of Tyron Woodley, and he just took out the guy who fought for the belt easily in his hometown too. He did that in Darren Till's hometown.
So again, that's kind of some of the decision making that So what's your pick actually? I don't know.
For me, scariest fighter, definitely Francis Ngannou. It was a toss-up between Masvidal and Ngannou, but if you look at the guy who just goes in there and just puts people to bed one shot, the guy that gives you the most danger, it's Francis Ngannou for me.
Yeah, and I like if I had to pick one person, it would be him. But I also think Paulo Costa is very scary.
And we talked about why maybe a lot of people didn't think Paulo Costa. That was because his recent fight with Yoel Romero was so close.
Yeah.
So it downplays what he's really capable of and what he has been able to accomplish in the past. But again, you're comparing him to Yoel Romero. That fight was super close. Both those guys could be on this list.
Yeah, his cardio, his like
forward pressure,
stop
movement.
Forward pressure, and how hard he swings in every punch. So yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, that was the top 4 scariest fighters, and the poll and results